Hey, party people! Welcome once again to the Party of One podcast, where the gaming table is always set for two. I am your host, as always, Jeff Stormer. This week I am joined once again by Russell Collins for the latest playtest session of his new game, Project WINGSPAN. Just a quick heads up that this is a special two-part episode. Part 1 focuses on Klaus Winberg undertaking Operation BACKSTAB, a dangerous sabotage mission behind enemy lines. Part 2, which drops next week, focuses on Klaus Winberg's efforts to contain the spiraling chaos on the home front. The session just ran a little long. I figured it was better to do 2 one-hour episodes than 1 2-hour episode. So stay tuned for that. Finally, before we dive in, a very special thank you to Jason Zek, our newest backer on Patreon. Jason, thank you so much. Your support is phenomenal and appreciated. If you're curious about the Patreon, you should check it out at patreon.com/partyofonepodcast. Patreon backers get bonus episodes, mini podcasts and interviews, and Patreon dollars go towards equipment fees, hosting costs, convention appearances, and new games to play on the show. You can find all of that at patreon.com/partyofonepodcast. And with all that out of the way, let's throw it over to me in the past so that he can get started with the show. Take it past me.
Thanks, future me. This week I'm sitting down once again with Russell Collins. Russell, thanks so much for coming back on Party of One.
Thanks. It's great to be here again.
So we are playing some more Project WINGSPAN, which I'm very excited about because we left off at the start of a very high-priority mission, if I remember correctly.
Yes, Klaus Winberg, our Project WINGSPAN project candidate, ROCKETMAN, transforming super soldier, was just about to be sent on Operation BACKSTAB by Commander Boza. We've still kept everything kind of hush-hush, but it's kind of good because it gets him out of town just as things are starting to get a little tense around there. We have Prayer Paul, that old man who's like running a citizens council, where he's like, begun these like witch hunts.
Yep.
Marta's in her basic training. So Hannah, her mother, and love interest of Klaus is getting a little nervous about like when she's going to deploy. Food rationing is picked up and all that sort of thing. So things are getting the war is heating up.
Yep.
And the people of Idle are starting to feel the pinch.
Yep. And just as things were picking up, I know I was speaking with Gene Wassler about his sort of, I don't want to call it profiteering because it's not quite profiteering, but his special rationing efforts.
Yes.
Just as I was picked up by Commander Boza to go on Operation BACKSTAB. And I distinctly remember Klaus is not in a good mood.
No, and I don't know that Kata is going to put him in a better mood. Kata is, and she insists that's all of her name, doesn't add anything else to it, is apparently an agent of the Moravian intelligence forces. You're introduced to her by Berza very quickly, and then you're kind of hurriedly bundled into a van and given some old clothes to put on, and basically given a brief rundown of how this is a sneaking mission. You're going to be smuggled behind enemy lines by Kata. She's going to get you into, where is it? Steilsburg, behind the enemy lines of the Asturian front. And there, she's going to pick out a target for you that they need you to, destroy as the ROCKETMAN, or at least take as much of it apart as you can. Now, I don't know, Klaus, I don't think you've been very big on stealth missions in your past or done any of that sort of thing.
No, I don't think I'm a stealth guy.
Yeah. Kata mostly handles that by telling you, like, okay, keep quiet, let me do the talking, follow in my wake, do what I do, all that sort of thing. So that she can sneak you in, sneak you around and all that without, hopefully, with her allaying suspicion of the surrounding people and all that. So, after that, it's really just the two of you sitting in the back of a van that's, pitching back and forth as it rolls up and down over the hills. Slowly, the ground beneath the van gives way to cobblestone streets, and there's a rumbling, and then those start to smooth out into the asphalt of the major cities and so on. Occasionally, you can peek out a little like slit window in the van door, but every time Kata catches you doing that, she tends to get away, get back up. And then of course she does the same just to make sure that no one actually saw you looking.
Sure.
But soon enough, you've made it to the outskirts of Steilsburg, and here is where Kata begins passing around money. You get stopped a few times at checkpoints. And, when she steps out with a few, pleasant words and a little sort of backhanded, flick of the wrist, she, hands out money to people left and right, getting you past checkpoints and so on. Now, this is really the first time you've seen Asturia as it's been since the war began.
Right.
And it is, it's kind of crazy. Every building is, has banners hanging from it, announcing, the importance of loyalty, the need for people to enlist, the Asturian flag, the big, blue, field with the, golden eagle and stars is spilling out of every windowsill. Plenty of, troops riding around up and down the streets, in their uniforms, either going out to the front or coming back from it. Strausberg itself is very much a factory town. So there's this constant, just clatter in the distance of machinery and equipment and just construction going on. Yeah. Occasionally the ground will rumble and, dust will shake down from the buildings. That the sky overhead just seems to be completely, blotted out by smog. And you can see these huge smokestacks just sort of looming at the edge of every vista.
Right.
Just bubbling, black smoke up into the sky. The entire town is taken over by that sort of, by being a war machine. So Kata is able to slip you through, the checkpoints, and then eventually, you hop out of the van and start, making your way down one of the side streets. She ambles along and, then asks, so how good is your Asturian?
I don't know. How good would my Asturian be? Probably not great.
Well, here's the thing. You've grown up in Morovia. You've been involved in that. You do have an Asturian surname, so you probably know a little bit, enough to get by.
I can ask where the bathroom is.
Exactly.
I think that's exactly what I say. I'm like, well, I can ask where the bathroom is. I can point out the library if I see it.
Well, hearing that accent, I guess I'm going to have to tell you to just keep it quiet as you can.
Just give her a curt nod.
So, what is this whole deal with you anyway? I mean, they didn't really give me much more other than you're the ROCKETMAN.
I've been asking myself the same question, if I'm being honest. I'm sorry, I know that's not much of an answer, but,
I'm used to non-answers in my line of work.
I guess I'm some kind of weapon. I can picture things. And once I activate the machine, the thing I picture sort of takes shape, and tends to involve pointing at a thing and that thing blowing up.
Sounds an awful lot like a kid's book or a movie or something like that.
Something like that.
Just doesn't sound real.
It doesn't feel real. I can't say that it's something that I've gotten used to.
Be very interested in that recruitment poster over there. She gestures to her left, and then the two of you turn, and she brushes at the side of her cap, sort of pulling it down halfway over her eyes as a couple of security guards, make their way past the two of you. They're dressed in Asturian military, but with different badges and arm patches and so on to denote that they're, civilian defense or civil defense rather, trooping by, just talking casually. You can pick out a word here and there, just casual talk, nothing that makes it sound as if they've spotted you.
Sure.
But all the same, Kata is like, I'm not taking any chances with this sort of thing.
I think when I take notice of the poster, I slouch over a little bit and take a little bit of that, old man posture that I've, shaken off.
Yes.
As the ROCKETMAN. So I think I'm sort of affecting that in a way that I think I've gotten used to that a little bit around Idol, but I'm playing it up a lot more here when she says look at the thing. I'm like,
Yep. Looking the part as best you can, which is great because you can fall back into how things used to be, and it looks more natural.
Yeah.
Good. Now it's further up the street, and I mean the buildings here are kind of dense, and there are overhangs into the street itself and archways and all that, so that for a while the sky just kind of vanishes as you get into these kind of twisting corridors. I apologize for the dramatic movement through the back alleys, but I think we might have fewer patrols to deal with this way. And, okay, our target should be just around this next turn. And as you make that turn, here the city just opens up into what would in any other place be a plaza or a big park.
Right.
The buildings are all set back away from this wide, clear, open area. But here, rather than a park, it is an asphalt field, completely smoothed out, completely plain concrete. Studded with pillboxes around the edges of it. The factories sort of lead up right to the edge of this, and sat in the middle of it is. Well, at first it sort of strikes you as just a big metal building. It's got to be a good 15 to 20 stories high. Big tapering metal block. And then as you look at it, though, you realize that the base of it, it's actually like held up off the ground by a good 10, 15 feet. And the base of it actually these huge tractor treads, like you would see on a tank. And just as you start to think, could this thing really be some sort of building-sized tank? A rumbling sound comes out from the underside of it that once again makes the whole city around you shake, and window panes rattle and dust, tumbles down off the sides of buildings. And the upper half of it splits and begins to lever itself open on gigantic pistons. And as it does that, you can see these sort of arms or wings or these big platforms studded with cannons and machine gun turrets and all that. And then rising up behind that is a helipad on which one of the Raptor rotor vehicles flies down and settles on the helipad there. This is the biggest machine you've ever seen in your entire life, and I mean it's a land tank and a land carrier tank, an enormous thing. That's it. Think you can take it down?
I have to, right?
Look,
This is insanity.
What they've told me and what I know of it is, I don't think you could blow up the whole thing, right? I mean, you're not that big a deal. But if you can damage it, slow it down, they've almost finished construction, but they haven't yet. That's why I knew we had to strike now. We had to do some damage to it. We can set it back, maybe delay the deployment if we can do enough damage.
I can do that.
Okay. Let's see if we can get you a little closer. And then it's going to be time for, she, reaches into her pocket and pulls out the activation injector that, you'll use to trigger your transformation. Slips it back in the pocket. Okay. Follow me.
Yep.
So, security is definitely tighter here.
Sure.
There's a lot more stopping and starting as Kata tries to sort of make you inconspicuous as, jeeps, full of soldiers go rolling by and, security guards come in a little thicker and thicker. There's a stream of people going in and out, but she keeps trying to keep you to the edges of that, as the workers go in and clamber up these scaffoldings on the side of the thing, and, come back down and troops march back and forth. Finally, you, come up to one of the security checkpoints where it's well, there's nothing else to do but go through here. And, so Kata steps up, flashes an, identification, papers, and another set for you and starts, rattling off in a story and lots of, stuff to this, rather bored looking clerk who, who is looking through those papers, looking at her, looking at you, looking at her, looking at you. She keeps talking conversationally in Asturian. Fortunately, Asturians do have a tendency to babble, so that it actually doesn't make her seem more suspicious.
Right.
It makes her seem less suspicious that she's comfortable to keep talking.
Right.
It's when a person clams up in Asturia that people start to get nervous about them. It's just one of those sort of little regional habits, which is why this guy seems to be paying more and more attention to you as she goes on and on about, weather and machine parts and things like that. Well, you don't have anything to say to him. After she starts to run down, starts to run out of things to say, he turns to you and, you're able to pick out from what he says in the Asturian, And what are your thoughts on these things?
Klaus leans forward
Mm-hmm.
as he gets a real opinionated look on his face, like he's about to say, just like he's got opinions, and this is gonna share them now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and just starts having the biggest coughing fit.
Yeah. You have to excuse him, is what you can recognize that immediately in the story from her. And then you hear something about, sick, unwell, it's been a while, something else about smog and things like that. And the guy, looks at her and nods and then looks back at you and, then says something in Asturian that you have never heard before and kind of waits for some response from you. Kata starts to reply, and then he holds up a hand to stop her. So, you could try and fake further sickness. It looks like he's really pressing on you to do something.
I'm gonna double down on this lie. I'm gonna commit.
Commit to being convincing?
Yep. I'm gonna I'm gonna keep coughing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to double over, and I'm going to, as I fall over, I'm going to throw a glance to Kata to see if she can't give her a glance, as though to say, hey, drop that thing in your pocket. I might have to grab it in a hurry.
Okay. Well, in order to be convincing, we're going to need to take 2 dice for your charming talent. Roll those 2 dice and look for the higher result. Oh, 6. I see a 6 there. Good. And then we add to that your convince.
So that's going to be 9.
9. Good. 9's a good roll for this. Yeah. You double over. You hit the ground.
Yep.
Kata runs and grabs you and starts saying, it'll be okay. It's all right. And starts to, to help you up. She turns and looks at the guy look, and then launches into another long-winded spiel.
Sure.
You're able to pick out some more things about this, like poor, can't pay rent, need to work, so sorry, things like that. You're able to pick out those words. Like she's really selling him a sob story about how you're unwell, but we can't afford, to not work today.
Yeah.
The guard seems to buy it. I mean, especially you pitching over, he gets this look on his face,
right.
Oh, what did I do? Oh man, I killed him. Oh no. Which is not really what he wanted. He wanted to find a spy. He didn't want to kill an old man, and besides, the line is starting to back up behind you.
Sure.
So, he muscles, a few of you through, the 2 of you through, with a quick little, snap of the Asturian salute and a little pledge to victory. And, and Kata helps you up and, helps you along, limping as you go past the checkpoint and down, toward the factory levels. Well, that was quick thinking.
Not no slouch on my feet.
We'll make a spy out of you yet, I guess.
Maybe there are worse things to be.
In case you were wondering, he was asking you, a question about a sick tortoise. It's an old proverb thing.
Good to know.
Yeah. I don't remember how you're supposed to answer it, though. I wish I could. Oh well. You saved us both by doing that then, I guess. Anyway, looks like this is your stop here, she says, as you sort of draw up, near one of the huge treads beneath this thing. You can, that rumbling noise is really loud. To the point that, she's begun to talk a little louder and louder as you've gotten closer and closer to the thing, just from these huge engines. And you can see rows of exhaust pipes, sort of in the skirt of this building, just blasting out waves of heat so that, there's that shimmering effect all around it and this thick smell of diesel exhaust from this gigantic engine burning away inside this thing. So, hope it all works out for you, I guess. She pulls out the activation injector, hands it to you.
He's going to take it. He's going to look at it for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to look back at the tank.
Mm.
How far are we from the tank? We're pretty close, right?
Yeah, I would say let's put you at about 100 yards away from it.
Okay.
There are still a lot of troops circling around there. And I mean the troops here are a little more heavily armed. There's actually a a squad of armored troopers, the ones who are like in that full,
Right.
metal suits with, big rocket launchers strapped to their backs and stuff like that, trooping around here, making sure nobody starts any funny business in front of, their machine, which as you're close enough now, you can see stenciled on the side of it in big, Gothic Asturian characters, Behemoth. Suitable name.
Appropriate, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, what I think I'm going to do is, if 100 yards away, I don't think that's far enough away for these nanobots to do what I wanted them to do, so I'll just have to do it here and hope for the best.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to jam down that injector and turn on this ROCKETMAN.
Okay. She starts to back away from you, remembering something about minimum safe distance or whatever the heck.
I think I give her a brief look and I just say, you were asking about, what I am?
Mm-hmm.
It's time to,
time to show it off. All right. She backs away from you. You jam the injector, and then there's just this bloom of pain that is then almost immediately cut off as the nanomachines, as the machine bursts out from you in this shimmering silver gray cloud that then begins grabbing up, around you there's, scrap metal, there's chunks of concrete, and all that stuff just immediately begins to get eaten away, taken down to, to some subatomic level, and then ferried back to you in a cloud that starts to stitch together the suit around you, weaving it into you and around you and, building you into the ROCKETMAN again. So, we need to figure out a couple things, where are you putting your upgrades?
So I have 3 upgrades, so I'm going to put one into focused and one into fit.
Okay.
Put both of those up to 5 dice each.
Mm-hmm.
And then deft is it deft or observant that is for shooting things?
Shooting things is observant.
And I'm going to bump up observant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, deft is for using skill weapons
as
opposed to power weapons. But observant is range finding and all that sort of
stuff.
thing.
That's going to give me a +5 to my observant, which is good because that's going to appear doing a lot of shooting things here.
Most likely. Your transformation, of course, does not go unnoticed because it's a little crazy. There's flashing lights, there's, stuff being dismantled and being thrown around. Some people start to shout and holler and, point in that direction of what the hell's going on. Some of the armored troopers, hear that and jump out of a jeep and start heading your way. You see, just sort of out of the corner of your eye, Kanta, just looking with this expression that sort of, it's a mixture of awe and dread, in that kind of truly wow, this is awesome, and oh my god, this is probably terribly dangerous.
Probably not super similar to the face that I had when I saw the behemoth. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then with a quick tug on her cap, she charges into the crowd of retreating workmen and just disappears into the throng as they start rushing away from the troopers who are moving to surround you. So what's your transformation look like this time?
I think this time it is for the first time not plane based. I think I think appropriately enough I kind of sort of just get very bulky, very armored. I'm kind of visualizing something not super different than the Iron Man Mark 1,
yeah.
So it's just big, bulky,
heavy shell of metal. And,
right.
Okay. I like that.
Because I think I'm looking at the behemoth and I'm kind of becoming this so I've got the jetpack in the back, but the wings are kind of stubby, maybe almost like Rocketeer-esque, big bullets on my back, and I'm just I think my feet are big, just blocks of metal. I plop them on the ground and I sink about an inch.
Yep. Oh yeah, the pavement cracks underneath you.
Because so that is what I and under I think that's it for now. It's going to change as we go.
Oh yeah, it'll change, especially if you get hit. If you get hit and the machine wants to respond to that, things will change. So, just remembering where we are, you have two marks of pain on you already. You have two marks of joy on there. Yep, good. And, I think we're ready to begin. So, let's give you a little bit of the layout. I mean, the The behemoth itself is so large that it's not a single target.
Right.
For the purposes of fighting it. It's divided up into, different chunks. There are the treads, there are 3 of those. Each one is its own thing. There's that helipad up on top. There are the 2 weapon batteries on the, on the platforms on either side of it. And there's also a command center, sort of perched, between those pieces. Obviously, obviously that's the most heavily defended.
Right, sure.
Each of these things has a slightly different challenge rating and a different number of buffs that can be thrown against you. The more, immediate concern are, of course, the squad of armored troopers who are rushing towards you right now. And, as the alarms are sounding, there's also a garage on either side, rolling up their panels, and some walker tanks start tromping out of those as well. So they're going to start throwing the forces at you to see what they can do to keep you from doing the real damage there. You could, from where you are, you could just go right for the behemoth if you want, or you could try and deal with those armored troopers before they mass up and start shooting at you.
That's probably I think that's what I'm doing. Is I think the first thing that happens is I kind of just put out my hand, and these big like shelling, these big almost mortars, like a circle of mortars. Form around my hands, and I just spread them out, and it's like thump, 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 in like a wide arc to, if not take out any of these troopers, scatter them in a way that is going to ideally delay the fight at least until most of the workers are gone. Okay. I think I don't want them.
You don't want that much collateral. Yeah. Well, they're rushing toward you. They have a heavy weapon buff. So, rolling to, so in order to use these weapons, you're firing on them. You're using your observant abilities. So that starts from focused, which is 5. But we have to lose 1 because of the buff that they have against you of their own heavy weaponry that can counteract the effect of some of yours.
Right.
So then you'd roll those 4 dice, and we're going to add your observant values to that, which would be plus 5.
2, 6, and 6.
Oh, okay. So those 2 6s are 7.
7 plus 5 is 12.
12. Whew. Oh, wow. Yeah, that that handily removes them as a threat. So, rain of fire, as you said, all around you. Just explosions, shards of pavement getting kicked up, a lot of screaming, a lot of running around. There's just that general chaos.
Right.
You can see one of the armored troopers just sort of collapses, practically smashed in half. Other ones are running around screaming and hollering and shouting. It looks like you've done a good job of getting the workers away. But, you've definitely demolished this group. Now, with 12, there really isn't any way you could buy that down.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Because the actual challenge there was a 7.
Right.
So I didn't even bother telling you once I realized you'd leapt so far over it.
Yep.
But that does mean, yes, you've done some good damage there. So I'm going to mark a point on anger for your sort of overkill.
Right.
Remember, the more of these grand and glorious over-the-top victories, the more the mood back home becomes righteous fury.
Yep.
And since your high roll was a 6, I'm going to take 6 away from the power level of the battle. So that's our first. It's a volley of explosives at armored troopers. I'm just making notes for myself so that I have a little play-by-play. Good. Yeah, so that takes care of that first little little impediment. I'm worried that this thing's going to be too easy for you now. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, I feel like I have plans if that happens.
Yeah, well, we'll find out.
Okay. Yeah, so I think the next thing is just hit those jets. My feet are suddenly much lighter, like that dissipates, and it is a straight shot. I'm going for underneath the behemoth.
Ooh, okay. Heading towards the mobilizers at the base of it. Okay. Those are more challenging to deal with. They have a couple buffs to them. They're heavily shielded. There are also point defense weapons on them, meaning there are a lot of small machine gun turrets attached all over this thing. Like little single crew turrets that they start, wheeling around and pointing in your direction as you fly under. Those tanks and so on start rolling out towards you, the armored troopers, but now you're under their thing. They can't really shoot in at you. They've got to let the troopers with the point defense weapons fire back. So they're trying to block you from getting in there. So what you're facing now is actually 2 buffs, so you would lose 2 dice off of the roll. You could take an action to try and eliminate one of the buffs by, taking some action that either alters you or alters the situation so that's more in your favor. Something that could counteract either the heavy shielding or could counteract these machine guns. Now, one of the good things about that is you see these little machine guns and the heavy armor plating are all over this thing.
Yeah.
And once you've found a way to work around a buff, you can keep using it. Okay. So, finding a way to debuff one of these things here effectively reduces that, removes that threat from the rest of the machine because you've already got a way to counteract.
I think I'm going to do that with the machine guns, the point defense weapons.
Sure.
I think what's going to happen, or what I'm going to try to do, is take a strafing run around one of them and position it so that I'm facing it head on, so that a few different smaller cannons sort of emerge down my chest, and I'm going to fire off some sticky grenade type bombs.
Okay.
I'm going to latch on and then explode to ideally, maybe not puncture the armor, but at least scatter the people inside. Once things start popping, I think people tend to scatter.
So you wanted to build a sort of a counter weapon to that. Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds interesting to me. Since you are firing with it, I think, again, that's an observant action. There's no need to worry about the buffs here because you're actually attacking one of the buffs, so it doesn't reduce your die pool. So go ahead and see the challenge that you're dealing with, though, is 10, because this thing is big and bulky, and there's a lot of stuff here, and and they're fairly well armored and fairly well prepared to deal with repelling an attacker.
All right.
Go for it. You got a lot of dice.
2, 4, 5, 5, 2.
All right.
So with 2 5s.
2 5s gets you a 6.
6 plus 5 is 11, so I'm going to spend one of those joys.
Bop it down to 10
exactly
for an exact
10.
match. Good. Okay. Yeah. That does it. I mean, you've, the machine responds to what you want and begins creating these launchers that fire out, these grenades that then stick to, it's some sort of magnet or something. You're not quite sure how exactly. All you really wanted was, grenades that will stick to it. Yeah. But you feel like sort of a magnetic, pulse as they smack onto the side of the turrets. There's some sort of energy that races through them, and then there's sparks, and you think it must be cooking off the ammunition inside the gun because there's pop, 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 spang, 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 sparks everywhere. And you basically you have a counter weapon now that can deal with those. You see one of the one of the hatches opens on one, and a trooper starts scrambling out and trying to pull himself down a ladder away from this thing. So that removes that buff from the point defense weapons. Those are out of commission. And that was 5.
Yep.
So we countered the machine guns. And with 5, that's going to bring us down to 37 for your power level.
So with that buff taken care of, I think I'm going to go back to trying to take out the mobilizers.
Okay. You're in mobilizer number 1, which is sort of its right leg. It has a left leg, a right leg, and a back leg, I guess. Each one with a huge, tank tread at the base of it. You ever see the space shuttle when they roll that thing out into the launch?
Yeah.
It's like that. It's that kind of enormous machine.
So I'm going to try to fly underneath it and just stick out one solid strafing run.
Okay.
Put out both of my arms, and I think the big mortar shells sort of all coalesce together into one long energy cannon as I just fly both sides and unleash a torrent of energy.
The challenge for this is 10.
Okay.
You're still shooting. It still has the 1 buff from its heavy shielding, so you'd have to drop 1 die from the roll, but you're still
4.
Pretty well prepared for that. Yep.
3, 1, 1, 4, 9, 10. Perfect.
10. Yeah, that hits it perfectly. All right.
Now I'm spending my second joy to do that.
Okay. We need to figure about getting you some of that back, don't we?
Yes.
Remember, you're thinking about your drive and your hope are the ways that we can generate that. So let's.
Yes, I got to figure out. Well, let me ask you, because I did take that first action, taking out those guards, was to enable the
That's true.
people to flee.
Yeah, we're trying to protect the people in that, but I mean, you were still also blowing people up at the same time, so it's kind of hard to.
Right, it is hard to make that justification.
Yeah, yeah, it's hard to.
Then I know what I'm doing next. Then,
so the 10 means that you can take out one of the mobility platforms. I
think I turn and just both hands forward, both arm cannons forward, and let out an energy blast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
knocks the thing off balance.
Since you're underneath the skirt of this thing, you're already past one of the layers of heavy shielding. So these beams of energy, you can just slice through the metal there. You're not actually able to cut the leg of it off, but you're allowed to burn through enough of it that the treads start to seize and the thing sort of stops rotating. The place where it was, the tread starts to seize and it stops for a second, and then it starts to. It's still trying to turn, rotate itself around, but now it's grinding that one piece along the ground. You can see the asphalt behind it is just coming up in huge furrows. The concrete just being, crushed into tiny pieces by this thing. And it starts to wobble a little bit above you until, somebody somewhere gives the order and it stops trying to turn, on its, broken leg. So, yeah, that, what was that total? That was 4?
4, yeah.
Just 2, because then you bumped it up to a 5.
Yep.
Good. Okay. 33. You have made short work of this thing. Without spending too much of your power. So good. All right. So now it's not moving around so much.
Right.
It still has 2 other mobility platforms. I mean, you've slowed it down now, but the more you can do to impair it or destroy it and keep it out of the front lines, the better.
I think the next thing I'm going to do is fly out from underneath it and do a distraction run, basically, by the people exiting a little bit more time to get out of here.
Sure, if you want to do that.
Yeah.
They do, however, have some of those Raptor copters that have launched from the helipad, and once they see you fly out, they now have a target, so they turn and begin flying down toward you. So they've given chase and are looking to blast you as you try and break away for a second to get a breather. Or to give them a breather, really. Not you don't need to relax.
Yeah, I'm fine.
You need them to know what's up and get the, and surrender. But, all the same, those 2 Raptors are now coming after you.
Right.
How do you want to contend with them? I mean, you can take shots at them. You could even just try to outstrip them and run away if outdistance them if the goal is to not really engage with anyone.
Yeah, I think that's the best plan. The plan is to string them along, go slow enough that they follow, but fast enough that I'm staying ahead of them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, these are challenge... Do I give the challenge number now? Well, they have a buff, in that they are, highly maneuverable. You are too, fortunately. But, that's what they are. And I mean, you're flying around in this factory area. There's, a lot of, tall buildings and smokestacks and all that sort of thing. I mean, you've got this big open plaza, where you can maneuver. But, I mean, that means that the other people are going to start drawing their guns up. So it might be better to try and take this out to the outskirts for a quick... for a little zigzag before you come back around.
I think what I'm going to do is try to create some obstacles for them to take out their maneuverability that way. So more of these... I saw how these sort of magnet mines worked. So I think I'm going to see if I can't get the machine to detonate them halfway.
Okay.
So that there are just some explosions happening so that they aren't as maneuverable.
Sort of throw up some flak.
Yes.
In effect.
Yes.
Sure.
Exactly.
I'm wondering if that's still a shooting thing, because now it seems like you're trying to, I think that's probably more intellectual now, because this is an indirect fire thing. It's not so much about see and shoot. It's more about let's calculate ranges and, estimate distances and, fuse timings, things like that. So I think this is a more intellectual use of your focus. Okay. Again, since you're not dealing with their, since you're skipping past their buff to deal with this, you get to roll your full die pool for this.
Okay. Do I know the challenge?
Let's see. The challenge for these is a 9.
Okay. Then in that case, that might not be... I might have to try a more direct approach.
Really? You don't think the intellectual will carry it? Let's see. Well, you've got focused, +1. You've got 5 dice. So you're likely to get a 6. But then, yes, true, your intellectual is only a 1 there. And you don't really have the joy to buy it up.
Alright, yeah, I'm gonna have to do something a little bit.
I mean, if you do go for a more direct attack on them with Observant, you could, bring your guns to bear, like, for real.
That...
Because it might just be that, you try lobbing a couple of these things and they don't really do the job. They just fly right through, not, trusting that they can outdo you.
Yeah, I'm going to try to shoot out their rotors.
Okay.
Down
Sounds good.
them without necessarily dooming the people inside.
Or so we hope.
Or so I hope.
Now remember, we're still attacking the buff.
Yes.
By doing this,
yeah, right.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to do some, cosmetic damage to the rotors to...
Gotcha.
Take them off balance.
Put the fear of flak into them.
Yes. 1, 2, 5, 6, 4.
All right.
So 6 plus 5 is 11.
Okay. Yep. That'll get that done.
Yep.
Yes. So yeah, you are able to, after flicking a few of these mines there and finding they don't quite work, you switch over to just, throwing energy beams at them, raking down the side of the helicopters and trying to shoot for their steering fins. The first one just starts spinning wildly, trying to, keep control. The other one does a little better, but now he's sort of cagey. He's like backing off away from you. He's not pressing the attack. He's still jockeying to try and get position on you, but he's not trying to close distance anymore. He's trying to keep distance, while the other guy is still sort of, struggling to try and keep himself up in the air. But the two of them are still there and still looking to get you. So that is 6.
That was a 6, yeah.
So that is... debuffing helicopters. And that brings us down to 27 on our power meter. Those 6s eat through it pretty quick, actually.
Yep. So, now that I've gotten... That was their only buff, so I'm back to my full 5 dice. Now I think I'm going to try for... to go back to what I was doing before. I've got them off balance and just, keep them occupied.
Okay.
Keep dancing.
Gotcha. So the goal now is to really just outrun them completely, break off so that they can't even pursue you.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So the full 5 dice. I think when you're doing that, that's a deft.
That's what I was thinking.
Action. Yeah. So it'll be your fitness. Same challenge number. Yep. 9. It'll be your fitness, and then you'll add your deftness to that.
All right. 3, 2, 5, 1, 3, 5, 7.
Okay.
So that is taking some pain.
7, yeah. That does not outrun them, I'm afraid. So, yeah. So, you have hindered them. You turn to, burn away from them. The 2 helicopters are sort of limping after you. You take a glance back to, to see how they are faring, they can't keep up with you. And then realize that you've flown right into a volley of anti-aircraft missiles flying off of one of the weapons platforms on the Behemoth. You had no idea they had that.
I sure didn't.
Kind of a surprise to suddenly find yourself in the midst of a cloud of explosions. You get knocked from one side to the other. The machine groans and grumbles around you, but the armor plates that get smashed away, the chunks begin to fall out of the sky, and then the machine sort of reaches out, grabs the debris from your broken armor, and even from the discarded pieces of the exploding rockets, begins to pull it back up into the air and starts stitching you back together from the rocket barrage that intercepted you. But those copters are now out of the way, but the Behemoth has suddenly become a much bigger part of your life. The weapons platforms are studded with cannons. They've got those same point defense machine guns that are sort of spraying, anti-aircraft fire, but you know how to deal with them. They're no threat to you anymore. But the larger cannons are trying to aim at you, and there are more missile racks that are also trying to track you with the anti-aircraft missiles. So it looks like you're up against the big guy again.
Yep. Which is fine.
That is 1 pain.
Yes.
So
puts me to 3 pain.
You have 3 pain. Yes, you can take 1 more before the machine goes over, and I get 1 here on the overall despair. Now, despair hasn't really been goosed up yet, so it's at 1, meaning if you take 1 more hit, word's going to get back to
Yep.
Morovia that, oh my gosh, our invincible ROCKETMAN isn't quite as invincible as we
Yep.
hoped. So far, you've been able to keep that going. You've been invincible.
I have been invincible so far.
So let's see if you can stay invincible.
I think what happens is I touch down.
Mm-hmm.
I touch down, and this jetpack on my back is starting to feel really heavy, which is weird. It's not, I'm in this big armor, everything feels light, but suddenly my back is just, I got a knot in right between the shoulder blades, and it's just, but suddenly, like, I can barely, suddenly I'm back at that slouched stance from earlier, and suddenly, like, my hands are on my knees, and I'm like, what is going on? And I full on fall down onto my, like, elbows and knees.
Okay.
And the pack on my back expands out, like the wings expand, and suddenly I have in miniature the same missile platform of the Behemoth is sitting in miniature on my back, and I'm like, okay, I guess this is the plan now.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. The machine recognizes these things and it wants to, to do what it can to counter, whatever does harm to it. It wants to return in kind.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So
Sounds
I think.
good. So yes, you're ready to launch a counterattack if you want to do that. I'm just thinking about your joy. I guess, what's you're really in the thick of it. It's hard for us to get joy back for Klaus. Duty, but it's a duty based on things like his age.
Right.
And his, okay. I guess it's really just a matter of, like, let's just try and slug it out with them, and hopefully we can get it done fast enough.
Right.
That not too much disaster accrues on this. Okay. Fine. So, you're facing off against one of the weapon batteries?
Yes.
Okay. These are also pretty heavily defended. The point defense weapons are no longer a threat to you, but they do have those anti-aircraft missiles, and they have those huge cannons as well, and those things could definitely be a problem if they can get a range on you. So there are 2 buffs against you. The challenge on this thing is also a 10, because it's still built out of the same hefty stuff of the rest of the behemoth. Oh, you rolled a 4 on that.
Yeah, rolled 4.
Right? Okay, so we're down to 23 power, and that was hit by AA missiles.
Okay, I'm going to take a debuff and try to neutralize one of these cannons first, as sort of as a test shot, like try to figure out how to shoot with a thing that is on my back.
Yes, you haven't really been a plane before. You've been mimicking a plane, but this is kind of a new experience to find that you have become the plane yourself. All right. This is firing away with Observant as well. You get your full dice because you're just trying to debuff instead of damage the thing. So, go ahead and roll for it.
1, 6,
6,
5, 3, and 1. So
Okay.
11.
11. That's enough to do the job. Yeah. 6. Let me just make a quick note of this before I forget. 17. All right. So, you train your focus on the long guns. Let loose with a barrage of smaller missiles, which hit the sides of the big guns. And one of the turrets locks in place. Smoke begins bubbling out of another one. You're only able to see one of the weapons platforms on this side of the thing. You have to circle around the other side to get that one. But you know where the weak points are in these things now. You figured out like the swivel base has an exposed area. If you can land shots there, that'll lock it in place. So both cannons are kind of locked and unable to turn to you. I mean, the cannons themselves are trying to, move up and down to get range, but they can't, their swivel's broken. So that's no longer a threat to you. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, the weapons platform is still there. It still has its anti-aircraft missiles, and they're, you can see the crewmen, running around the deck, aiming those in your direction, firing them off. There's still machine gun fire filling the air around you, but, if any of those do actually track you close enough, you just feel them sort of ping off the armor now, it doesn't mean anything to the machine anymore.
Yeah. So I think I'm going to take fire at the... Do I want to take one last... Do I want to take
You could try and take off the other buff if you want to try and hit the thing full force. Or
I think
you
that's going to be. I think that's the plan.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the plan.
So now you're looking to take out those anti-aircraft missiles.
Now I've got it. Now I sort of the weight is sort of lifted off of my back a little bit.
Okay. You going to shoot those out as well, or do you have a different tack for those?
I think fly overhead and drop something on them.
Drop some bombs on them.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that still observant, or is that more an intellectual thing? I think it's probably still observant from where you are, the angle you're taking. The intellectual thing would be intellectual is like indirect fire, or, trying to calculate a long distance missile strike, or something as simple as I'm going to fly and I'm going to drop bombs.
Yeah.
And they will land behind me in a string. Is probably more observant.
All right.
So let's take that roll then.
All right. 3, 1, 3. So 3, 4, 5, 10.
Wow, that's neat. Nice. With those 3 threes, that means that you only had to spend 3 points from your power to get that.
Yes.
But that still totaled you a 5.
And that gave me with my 5 for my upgrade.
Yeah, perfect. 10. Excellent. Yeah, that's perfect. That's a perfect hit to that. So
Excellent.
Yes, we've eliminated the anti-aircraft missiles as well. So now you're basically in the clear to attack this thing. I mean, there's still defenders there and so on, but you're at your full power.
Yeah.
There's nothing getting between you and hitting that battery full on.
Good.
So fire away, I assume.
Fire away. Fire away. I think I level myself and I say, oh, here goes nothing. 4, 3, 5, 2. 5 and 5 is 10.
5 and 5 is 10. That's an exact hit. You don't have to worry about any overkill or anything like that. Yeah. The barrage of fire slams into the side of the weapons platform. Without all that covering fire coming at you, you can actually hit the joint area. Remember how I said these things sort of levered open from the side?
Yep.
Pouring fire into those pistons breaks some of the support. And the platform, it doesn't fall off, but it lurches down like several feet so that all the troops on it grab for the deck and start scrambling trying to get off. A few of them probably do tumble over the edge, but you can't quite make them out in just the mess of smoke and metal rolling off this thing. The whole behemoth lurches to the side before, some pistons somewhere else fire, and there's this roar and this gush of steam and heat. It almost seems like a missile launch as the thing rights itself with some, with just with its engines going full blast, and rockets inside it firing off to try and counterbalance this enormous, unwieldy machine. All right, so we've destroyed weapon platform A.
With weapon platform A down, and with a tread down, with a mobilizer down, and a platform down, I'm feeling pretty good.
Yep.
I'm feeling like I didn't destroy it outright, but I took out enough of it that they will not be able to deploy this thing for a good long while. So I think my plan for the rest of my power is to go back to Operation Duck and Weave, make sure that they're focusing on me, and that I can take what they throw at me.
Sure.
So I think that's the plan.
Yeah, you have 14 power remaining before the machine. I mean, if you want to try and break off now, you can, but. Your orders were do as much damage as possible, before bugging out. So, the more you can do, the happier they will probably be back home. But like you said, you've done significant damage to this thing. It's not rolling out onto a battlefield tomorrow. So that's nothing to sneeze at.
If they give me grief about it, I can tell them that I wanted to ensure that our operatives got to safety.
Okay.
That's not why I'm doing it, but if they need a reason, I can give them a reason.
Now, one of the things that has, in a way, sort of been a saving grace of all this is that it's been in sort of an open plaza area. So you've noticed that, while they've been trying to target you, they've been more careful about, the surrounding area and all that sort of thing. It seems like they're getting a little more desperate now, though, as you've done more damage to the behemoth. It still has its secondary weapon bank, that, its secondary weapon platform, but also other vehicles and so on are beginning to, pour out of the area around it. There's a troop carrier, VTOL trying to take off. There are, more helicopters trying to get up into the air, but there are also tanks wheeling around, on the ground trying to get a shot at you. And a few shots have already gone wide and begun to hit the factories and the surrounding buildings around the plaza because, they've gotten past that stage of, oh, we must defend this to, oh my gosh, we have to destroy this crazy thing that is, this like hornet flying through the air, smashing apart, our greatest military achievement, So, yeah, So you've got a lot of potential targets. You said your goal was really just duck and weave and sort of keep your distance from everything for a while?
Keep my distance, make sure that I don't, especially if they're getting desperate, I want them being desperate towards me and not towards the factories and not towards the people. Like
try and keep the fire over and around you. Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. That means hugging very close to the behemoth and sort of wheeling around it where they're afraid to fire.
Yes.
The downside of that, of course, is that the behemoth's second weapons platform is still trying to shoot out toward you. Fortunately, you can counteract the effect of the long guns, the missiles, and the defense point weapons on it. So you've got that, in your favor. The command center, however, does have access to some other additional hardware that isn't, built into other parts of the machine. So, as you're wheeling around, you start to hear this sort of high-pitched, shrill noise building up in your ears. You're not quite sure what it is, but then you start to feel that this sort of trembling, and your vision starts to get a little bit blurry. So you can keep trying to fly around, and keep your distance from things, but you're going to have to take deal with the buff from the command center. It has two buffs that it can use here. It's electronic countermeasures devices and the elite crewman operating said devices. So it's got those two buffs to use against you as you try and fly around it. So you can try and turn and deal with those first, or you could just see like, hey, have I got the dice to power through, flying away or, flying around it?
I'm going to deal with one of those buffs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to deal with one of those buffs. I'm going to fly overhead almost as though I was doing a magnet mine strafing run.
Mm-hmm.
Except the points where the magnet mines start to fan out. They start to almost bloom, right? Mm-hmm. Until they become, for lack of a better term, megaphones.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And once I get around any of their view windows or anywhere where there might be glass, bulletproof or otherwise, they're gonna screech.
Okay. You can see there are viewports, there are, hatchways, that, a lot of the troops, are scrambling into the hatchways towards the command center from the weapons platform that is dropped. So yeah, you can definitely fly, for that area. So I assume you're trying to deal with the command crew.
Yes, trying to deal with the command crew and,
How are we going about this? This is interesting, because what you're trying to do is basically terrify them, right?
It's almost gotta be intellectual, right?
I think it's intellectual, yeah. I think it's focused and intellectual, yeah, trying to sort of give them put the fear into them of who you are and what you can do, so that they know you are not a thing to be messed with.
Right. What's the difficulty on this?
Let's see. Well, we're dealing with a command crew, and I think that they should probably be a challenge of 9.
Okay.
Because, they're not the machine itself, but they're also not, like I said, these are the elites. You're talking about there's a general in there and his higher up officers. So, so that they have sworn to defeat people like you. So I think it is going to be tricky to try and do that. I think it's going to be a 9.
That's going to be, that's not.
I mean, you could alter to take a more direct approach and just start smashing things.
I think that might have to be the plan.
Okay.
Is just start punching, doing like machine gunning, or even better, I'm going to just punch my way in
to the command
center.
Yeah. Okay, that sounds good to me. So that's going to be fit and strong in order to just charge in. I mean, you should probably still have the speakers blaring to again just terrify them as you fly towards one of the portals. Looking out.
Well, that'd be good because then that'll make it a lot harder to ignore, right? Like if I'm screeching inside of the command center,
yes,
they're going to scatter a lot faster than they would otherwise. So that's my plan.
Okay, so that's fit and deft.
All right, it's 5 dice. 6, 1, 6. 5, 3. So that's 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
11. Wow. And with the 6, we're down to 8 power. And that is to terrify the command staff. So, you fly in toward that tank. Now you found a portal that you fly up toward, and as these basically coruscating waves of terrifying sound are pouring out of the speakers.
Yep.
You smash your way through the wall of this thing, peeling apart the armor plates, and and shoving your way into the command deck. It's like a spacious tank, in that it's not like, there's not a lot of room in this place, honestly. So the sound immediately fills it, and, the crew begin grabbing their ears and, like, scrambling and running away. You can see, like, all of these, Asturians in their military uniforms. There's, a commander has a slightly raised, chair sort of behind a console at the back. He starts screaming and hollering, claps his hands over his ears. One of the guys at his side, grabs up a rifle and fires at you, but because you're already so heavily shielded from dealing with the machine guns, it just kind of pings around off you. And, there's just like a lot of screaming and hollering and so on as people scramble towards the exit doors to try and get away from you. The commander doesn't, run though. He just stands there like, shouting at you, trying to be heard over the noise of the megaphones. Now, because of the machine, you could hear him if you want to. The machine can do all kinds of fun audio filtering things because, it does what you want it to do. It sees what you want it to see. It hears what you want to hear.
I want to hear what he has to say.
Well, you're able to pick out some of the Asturian, some of the other Asturian, some of the other words have to slip you by. But the word that comes up over and over again is demon. You are some unholy monster. You are the great threat. You are the true aggression. We must rise up to defeat the challenge of you. Something to that effect is kind of what you're able to pick out. That like he's specifically blaming you for this kind of thing, which I guess is what he would do until one of his other officers grabs him bodily and begins pulling him away from you, as as another chunk of the wall just sort of breaks off behind you and tumbles down to the pavement hundreds of feet below. So you have terrified the commanders out of the command center. It's still here. Of course, there's nothing stopping you now from letting loose with a volley of mortar fire on the inside of the thing to
probably exact. I mean, at this point, I
might as well core it out.
May as well. If I'm here, may as well core it out.
So go ahead and fire away.
All right. Does it still have one buff or no? Yes. It still has anti-electronic weapons.
Yes. The ECM stuff is still working. There is still that little throbbing noise at the back of your head, but it's But it's only the one die you've lost to that.
All right. So I'm going to throw 4 dice, plus 5, as I do the exact same thing I did earlier. Mortar shells in an arc. 2, 3, 5, 6.
6, 5, 11. Okay, we're over by 1 point. So that would be a little bit of overkill, but it's not enough to tick the anger over. So we're okay there.
On that note, I think I'm peacing out.
Yep. You've got 2 power left. But, again, just bloom of fire all around you. The command center is just enveloped in explosions. You can see the consoles burst into flames, crack, and collapse. And then you can sort of throw yourself back out of the machine as again, like the engines roar inside it, and flames gout out of the command center as you fly away from it, peeling away through the sky. You're leaving behind a scene of chaos, smoke and flames darting up out of this thing, troops wheeling around at the base of it, workers streaming out, away from the factories, around you. You've certainly upset it's like you've kicked over a hive here. You've upset the entire, town into this panicked, frenzy, of people trying to pour away from this broken machine.
Another mission safely undertaken by the ROCKETMAN. But don't rest easy, Klaus, for a whole different kind of battle awaits you on the home front. Can Klaus contain the peace and comfort of home without the machine waiting within? Find out next time. That's it for this week. Stay tuned next week for part 2 of our Project Wingspan playtest session. Thank you so much to Russell for coming on to the show. You can follow all of Russell's work at robotclaw.info, and you can follow Russell on Twitter at robotclaw. I am loving Project Wingspan. I cannot wait for this to be a game that people can play and enjoy. It is so flipping cool. I love it. It's really neat. Anyway, speaking of Twitter, you can follow this show on Twitter at Party of One Pod, like the show on Facebook at facebook.com/partyofonepodcast. If you've enjoyed the show, consider giving us a nice iTunes review, a social media shout-out, or a word-of-mouth recommendation. All of those things help new people find the show and allow us to do bigger, better, and cooler things. If you want to hear more from me, check out All My Fantasy Children, the podcast in which Aaron Catano, Saez, and I take your listener prompts and turn them into beautiful, thriving, vibrant role-playing game children. That can be found at soundcloud.com/allmyfantasychildren. Like I said up top, consider backing us on Patreon at patreon.com/partyofonepodcast. Party of One is produced by Jeff Stormer and Jen Frank. All music for the show comes from the song Infinite Lives by Megaran featuring the D&D Sluggers. If you'd like to inquire about advertising rates coming onto the show, or you just want to hear my extremely good Superman opinions, you can email me at partyofonepodcast@gmail.com. That's it for me. Until next time, thank you so much for listening. Remember to fight the forces of fascism every single day, and party on.